So this is a review of a nearly 40-year-old game, and I'm making it for mainly two reasons. And that is, firstly, the idea of covering live service games last year almost made me quit gaming entirely. Thank the Lord for Baldur's Gate 3 because I was losing my mind. The second is, in response to this issue, I decided I was going to play through all of the Final Fantasy games. I've wanted to for a very long time, and I've only played a couple, and I thought it would be kind of cool to document my way through the entire series and kind of just see how my appreciation for the Final Fantasy franchise moves up and down as I move throughout all the games. Final Fantasy is one of those franchises I remember the most growing up as being iconic in shaping how I view gaming as a whole. Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 were my favorite games for a long time until I played Bloodborne in college and last year Baldur's Gate 3. And so today's video is really just to summarize and explain my experience going through Final Fantasy 1 before jumping into the whole series. Now, for a lot of the early games, I will be using the pixel remasters. I'm a zoomer, and the 4x XP will help cut down a ton of that turbo grinding necessary in some of these early games. Though Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 4, I will be playing the 3D remasters that were released for the DS, I think, because that's what I played as a kid. And Cecil looks fly as fuck in that version. So with all that being said, the original Final Fantasy. Boy, is this a nostalgia hit for me. My little brother and I used to play this on our Game Boy Advance. You get to pick what units are actually in your party, and none of them have names, so we would always pick a white mage and a black mage that we would name after our mom and dad. Then we would always pick a warrior, and then the final slot would either be a ninja or a monk. And then we would name that after ourselves and the other brother. It was actually really sweet. And the game hits different when it's your dad that just got knocked down instead of a random dude named, I don't know, Joseph. Which is good, because the characters of Final Fantasy 1 really don't have a story. There's a legend about 4 warriors of light that will appear with crystals of light, and they'll save the world from the coming darkness and chaos. And we really do kind of just appear out of nowhere. You start the game standing in front of this small castle and town with people that immediately recognize you as the warriors of light because you're carrying 4 crystals. And I don't know, every other warrior in the town sucks ass, I guess? Which even my 11-year-old brain thought was odd, because there's this only one settlement on this tiny peninsula that you're on. And the king won't fix the only bridge connecting you to the outside world unless you rescue the daughter from this evil dude. We don't have a boat? So how do these people not know who we are? This is like, we have to live here, right? Is what Little Muffin would say. So you kill the evil dude, the bridge gets fixed, and the rest of the game is you wandering around looking for the big crystals to light up. Each one has its own themed dungeon related to the element of the crystal, and each one is guarded by some fiend who is the boss of that section of the game. Then randomly, after you kill them all and bring light back to the world, you find out that the guy you killed at the beginning of the game went back 2,000 years in time and sent the fiends into the future. It's this really weird twist at the end of the game that doesn't add much and turns this fantasy adventure into a weird time issue, like a time loop, and it just leaves a weird taste in my mouth. Like, I would have liked it better if the 4 elementals, I don't know, coagulated into some big, massive, chaos monster instead of just some random knight being the chaos monster for some reason, and there being time travel. But that would change the entire final dungeon, since the other bosses are used as this gauntlet you have to burst through to finally get to the end of the game. I'm not a huge fan of using previous bosses in games as new bosses that you just have to fight again, though they do have the excuse in this one of, oh, this is the version of the monster fiend from 2,000 years ago. It's not the same guy. There also aren't any real characters that stick out in my mind as being worth remembering in this game, other than Master Matoya, but I think that's mostly because I really enjoyed Final Fantasy XIV, and I can't wait to cover that one. Ultimately, the original Final Fantasy is a very bare bones experience. However, whenever I sit down and try and judge it, I can't help but feel like I'm doing it unfairly. I let it slide on having such a simple story because, well, it's old, I guess? I don't know. Because comparing it to something like Final Fantasy 16 feels ridiculous. I don't really mind that the combat is sword dude uses sword, magic dude uses magic, and then you select that for the rest of the game. However, I know that there's other future games in this very franchise that I criticize for that exact same problem, quite harshly in one of them. But the fact of the matter is that nobody in this day and age is playing the original Final Fantasy for the mechanics or the story. You're probably playing it because you want to see what it was like back in the good old days when your dad was a kid, or more for the historical appreciation, kind of like I'm doing in this series. But mostly after playing Final Fantasy 1, I'm left with 2 big impressions. The first one is, this game's runtime is about 9 hours, the last 3 of which, despite having on 4x XP and gold, I spent them grinding in the final boss's dungeon, going from level 40 something to level 60 something, because he could one-shot my white mage, and if that happened, you just lose the fight. Maybe I missed some good gear somewhere along, because I was kind of zooming through the game, but this dude was doing 850 damage, and max HP is 999, so that just doesn't seem right to me. I learned that in the original version, he actually only had 2,000 HP, but in this version, for some reason, he has 20,000 and can heal for 9,999. huh? It's stupid and frustrating that a third of my gameplay time was spent preparing for this one boss that, when highly geared, I had like the 2 best swords in the game, kind of fell down to, can you kill him before he punches your healer? The second thing I took away from this was how much DNA the future Final Fantasy games do take from this original one. Like, I knew the crystals and like the Warriors of Light, but that's Final Fantasy 101. But the archetypes of White Mage, Black Mage, Red Mage, ships that fly across the sky, Master freaking Matoya for some reason. This game has a lot of heart for how simple it is, and clearly inspired a lot of future works, and even inspired me as a young gamer. And for that, I found that it was worth my time playing, and I'm excited to jump into the next game in the franchise. And if you'd like to join me on this journey, you can always hit that subscribe button, or you can go down into the comments where I have a link to my Twitch where I stream it live. Spoiler alert, I'm a slow script writer and I've already beaten 2, so expect the new video soon.